Peeples.
Welcome back, everyone. Talking about metro schools, 2 weeks into the school year. How is it going? What are some of the questions parents have? I have a great panel up here from metro schools to answer your questions. One of the big new things this year, there are new schools that have opened. New schools, a lot of kids going to a school that opened for the first time 2 weeks ago. That could cause chaos, confusion, all kinds of things. How did it go? And I'll turn to you and ask that. New schools, how did that go?
It's going great. Our two new schools are Smith Springs Elementary, which services the Antioch area, and then the Waverly Belmont, which was formerly used as a training and technology center, is now Waverly Belmont Elementary. So we're really glad to have them. They've both reported a great start to the new year. So students are in and everyone's doing great there.
Is that one of the things as a parent liaison, parents have to be especially well, on edge? It's a whole new school.
Yes, sir.
Were you hearing questions in regard to that?
Sure, we were hearing a lot of things. You know, there were also a lot of concerns making sure they were going to open, you know, and how they were doing and keeping contact between the schools and the parents, which we were able to do that with them. You know, we had some people that were down at the board helping out with asking questions and being available for those people and, you know, trying to make sure we were able to keep those communication lines open. All right, let's go to Ann. Hello, Ann.
Yes.
Hi, what's on your mind?
Well, I just want to have a brief comment. I understand the separation of church and state, and I'm not going to debate any of that, but I've just always found it very curious that Muslims are allowed to pray at school. They're allowed to get up and leave the classroom and go to a private area during the day and pray.
Okay.
Christians aren't allowed to do that. And to me, that's hypocritical. And I just find that very, 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 very hypocritical. That.
Now, how do you know that?
Well, they are. I've worked for metro schools for over 20 years, and yes.
And so that's a fact?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's talk about that to the extent that would be appropriate. What were you saying? What can you say about that? If a parent calls up and is concerned, what about that?
One thing we can say is that although teachers aren't leading prayer or leading religious experiences, a child will not be forbidden from quietly observing their own faith.
So that would be a Muslim or a Christian prayer.
Yes.
Off on their own would be okay. Is there anything you wanted to add there?
Well, I've worked in metro schools for 6 years and 4 years actually at one of our local high schools, and I would say that we have never deterred a student for practicing their religion. If they need to head out of class for a minute and have a prayer, then we can do that, whatever the religion is. Like we said, we don't lead those prayers, and we do not, you know, tell people what to believe, but we try absolutely the best that we can not to discriminate against somebody's ethnicity or somebody's religious beliefs.
And now, Gerry, your new position.
Sure.
It's mapping out. I guess this is new ground, right?
It is. Yep.
So, the first 2 weeks, lots of help with parents, getting to the right bus, whatever it is. Where do you see it going? Where do you see your job progressing and some of the big focus that you'll have going forward the rest of the year?
Well, hopefully I'm going to be one of those people that I'll be a voice for our families, but I'll also be a voice for the board, you know, or the schools or anything that needs to be done. I want to be there to help assist in any way. And I think it's one of those things that we get constant calls just for people needing information, wanting to be able to, whether it's the time off from school that's coming up, you know, whether it's transportation, whether it's, you know, any kind of assistance. So I don't think that it's going to be a job that's going to lack in any way.
And are you out meeting? Are you going to schools? Or are you mainly there just to help with the influx of parents?
Right now, we're at the board.
And so parents should know that. Parents,
Yes.
There is someone there that can help them get through whatever it is they're getting through.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the big changes with the calendar, if at all? So that's a big question. Is that a question parents have, whether it's spring break or whatever? What are some of the things?
We have done a lot of that, and one of the great things is that any parent can go on to the website and get the calendar and print it off. You know, we have days coming up that are going to be off. We're off Labor Day, and then there's a Teacher in Service Day on the 8th. After that, and then, you know, they need to know that, you know, the progress reports come out shortly following that on the 9th of September.
Progress reports. Wow.
They're already en route.
Wow, that's amazing. What about the grading system? I know that was something that got a lot of discussion. I think we did away with 0, isn't that right? What is the grading system? And kind of go over that for parents. Who wants to take that?
Okay, I'll take that.
Go for that.
So I don't have, I really don't have a good answer for the grading system. I will say this, coming from a teacher's point of view and now in central office, I appreciate what the district is trying to do. You know, we want to provide opportunities for our students to be successful in school, and what we're seeing in the classroom now is that when a student takes a test and they get a 50 on that test, then it's no longer a set in stone grade. They cannot do anything to make that up. What we're seeing now is that teachers work with that student to figure out what was the other 50% that was missed, and really work individually with that student, which is hard to do, but they're being trained to do, you know, they're trained to do that, to make sure that they understand the material. So it's a completely different shift in philosophy, you know, when it comes to academics and grades. It's more about, you know, are you understanding this material? And if you're not, how can I help you?
And that is the argument for it, and it's gotten a lot of attention, I know.
Right.
Another question that I've heard parents ask this time of year is, all right, school seems to start really early. So they might say something like, it used to start around Labor Day. Back when I went to school, it started around Labor Day. Now we're starting August 1st, essentially. Why is that? Why the early start date for school?
You might remember a few years ago when this was a big issue, and we actually polled. We went out, we polled parents. They could call in, they could submit their choices. We had 3 different calendars. We had traditional, we had balanced, and we had one in between. So we did get a lot of parent support for the calendar that we have now, and most people seem to be very happy with it.
What is traditional and balanced? Remind me of that.
Well, balanced is, we had the year-round, the traditional, which was more of the calendar that you remember. And if you actually went back to the origin of that calendar, do you know what it is?
It was for farming.
It was for farmers.
I think is what they said.
So
farming,
the kids
yeah.
could help with the crops. So we had that. We had the year-round school, and then we have what we do have now, which is called the balanced calendar. So the kids will get the fall break, the kids will get the spring break, they get the longer break around the holiday, and we start usually around the 1st of August, usually end around the end of May.
Because it can be really difficult when there's a prolonged summer.
Very difficult. It's very difficult for the kids to retain the information that they learned at the end of the last year and to start fresh at the new year. And families seem to like it when it comes to child care and figuring out where everyone needs to be and how they're going to get where they need to go. There was quite overwhelming support for this calendar.
You don't see that changing anytime soon. There's no talk of that.
There's no talk of that at this time.
The one thing that I will add to this is that another addition that we put in several years ago was intercession. And intercession, we used to have it in the fall and the spring, but we're just really sticking with the spring right now. And a big reason for that is to really just make sure the students are on track for, we look at graduation. We want to make sure that they're, everything that they have learned throughout the school year is, you know, that they're understanding it. So it's a lot of, as well as, so it's the academic piece, it's the enrichment and the, you know, remediation piece, but it's also speaking to the academies. When I was at a local high school, when I was teaching at a local high school, we did a lot of job shadowing during those times, and we went and did some field trips at some, you know, different businesses, and had a you know, an opportunity where we weren't in school to, in class, to go do some of those experiential learning opportunities.
All right, we have somebody who wants to ask about the calendar. Let's go to Stubbs, I believe, on line 2. Hello, Stubbs.
Yeah, good evening. This has been an enlightening program. I'm wondering about the calendar for the Christmas break, or fall now, and I'm not surprised after many of these comments that many parents do move their children after grade school or something, because apparently it's becoming more enrichment than it is education, and it's just really becoming quite disturbing. Thank you.
All right, so not about the calendar at all. All right, let's move along and go to my other question, which is about the early start time for schools. And that was, I just asked about, all right, starting in August. But what about high schools? They're starting at like 7 a.m. And that's a big concern for parents, isn't it? Is there anything that can be done? I know parents are concerned about high school and starting so early. And I think there was even an effort to try and change that. Tell us where that stands, what happened there. Do you think there's a possibility? I mean, is 7 a.m., is that's what time they start, right, for high school?
7:05, yep.
Is there any, why does it start so early?
Well, during the 10 years that I've been with Metro Schools, it's been the same. Even when I think back to when I went to school in another state, 7 o'clock was the standard high school time for starting. It is quite early, but when you think about the logistics that goes into getting all of the 84,000 plus students back and forth to school, really you do need to start pretty early. Each of our buses runs 3 routes. They run their high school, middle school, and elementary route. Same bus, so after they pick up one group, they go to the other. So when you think about it, just the logistics alone would be very difficult to change, because once they're done, they start right back up in the afternoon. So.
The other thing is, you know, a lot of your high school students are a part of extracurricular activities. They are going out, and like we're saying with the academies, they're working, you know, we've got a couple of students right now, or a lot of students that are using the STRIDE program to go downtown to do job shadowing. Or they actually have it, you know, they've got a job that they go to in the afternoon. So that is, you know, one of the things that helps when they go to school a little bit earlier, is they get out earlier to do some of those other things.
Okay, we're going to take a break, then we'll come back, continue the discussion. If you want to call, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.